I'm Mary DuPree, and I'm on the board, and I'm serving as a liaison to the two committees of the capital campaign process, which we'll talk about today. I want to give you a little background in terms of how we got here today, and then we'll be hearing about the status of the capital campaign, and then we will hear about the building plans themselves, and we'll also be hearing about specifically about RE needs, which I understand are particularly acute at this moment. More space in the sanctuary, and we also realized that the fellowship hall was not large enough for activities that we already have there, and that the kitchen was inadequate. So a bunch of inadequacies. So what do we do about it? We went through a process of, over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years maybe, of sort of envisioning how we might address these problems. One was no action, which is always easy. Two was to make some minimal changes that would allow at least ADA access to our buildings. Three was to keep our sanctuary here, but to replace the yellow house with a functional building that could serve many of our needs. And the fourth option was to sell this property and move to a place where we could build from scratch. In the process of discernment over some formal meetings, questionnaires, lots of conversations, the congregation determined that it wanted to stay here. It wanted to keep the sanctuary for its aesthetic and historical characteristics, but that it wanted to replace the yellow house. And this was a very strong consensus by the congregation, and it was affirmed in a vote last year. So after that, we decided to put in a mechanism for making our plans for the future. And what we did was we formed two committees, and I'll just call them simply the Building Committee and the Finance Committee, and these are both under the capital campaign. The Building Committee has met continually since February. We hired an architect who is Lawrence Rose, who had done some preliminary idea sketches for us before, and had a long-term relationship with this congregation. And we have worked with him and his Moscow associate, John Paul, who's actually in the back of the room here today, our man on the ground. Thank you. We came up with, they came up with initial plans. The building committee critiqued, suggested, and modified the plans in a way that we hoped that they would meet our congregation's approval. They are not final plans. They are the vision we have at this moment, and they were enough to make some financial estimates, which I assume that Al will talk about in a minute. One of the things that we didn't address because we were thinking, well, what are our physical needs for the congregation in the future? One of the things we really didn't address were what are our social needs, I guess. What do we want our place in the community to be? And so that became a more important part of our conversation. One of the reasons that we want to stay here is not just because we like this particular room. It's because we are in the center of the community, and we think it's very important for us to have a major presence as a liberal religious congregation in this town at this time. Therefore, how can we serve the community best is probably by being right here and seeing how our facilities can not only serve our individual needs and our congregation's needs, but the community's needs. And how can we not only host groups like Family Promise, but how can we expand our vision of our mission to the community? So that was a big part of our envisioning discussion. You will hear a report from the Building Committee, and the other committee is the Finance Committee, chaired by Martha Schmidt and Marisa Gibler. And so Marisa will give us an update on the financial side of matters, and then the really exciting part will be coming as we do the unveiling. Where's the black velvet curtain? Oh, forgot it. But Marisa.
Hello. So many of you were probably here about a year ago when Rachel Maxwell came. She was our capital campaign consultant, and she came and interviewed the board and many of our committees, and kind of like looked through all of our records, our history of attendance, and our history of some donations and things. She worked with our finance committee, and she gave a presentation one Sunday on all of her findings and gave a really rousing, enthusiastic, inspiring sermon about what a great congregation we were and how she was blown away by everyone's lack of conflict, that we were all really kind of like together in this and drawn together. So the next step in our phase right now with the capital campaign finance plans is that Rachel will be returning in about 1 month. And the point of this visit will be to do what is called a financial feasibility study. And that is to narrow down more specifically what the level of involvement currently with our congregation is, not only in day-to-day kind of church activities, but how involved you all and we all are with this whole building and capital campaign drive. One of the things specifically that she'll be looking for is gaps in communication. If anyone feels like they have missed out on a lot of like the progress that we're making, or they feel like they haven't had a chance to give their opinions. So that's one thing she'll be looking for. Because she's only going to be visiting for a few days, and it would be difficult to do otherwise, she will only be interviewing about a quarter of the households in her congregation. So our committee and Rachel jointly has put together a list of, I think it's around 30 households that we're sending out invitations to early this week. And that will be in order to sign up for about 45-minute long interviews with Rachel. And we tried really hard to get a cross-section of our congregation, people that are higher income, people that are lower income, families, single people, retired people, people with disabilities, people in the LGBTQ community, a really broad cross-section so that she can hear really if everyone is fully involved, if everyone feels like they're being involved, how much we can actually maybe count on for finance purposes. So that's our newest thing that she will be coming to do, and like I said, that will be September 13th, 14th, and 15th. She'll be here. And then she'll take a few weeks to put all that information together into a really cohesive report, which she will send back to the board and to the building committees. And after that, she will be looking for about 30 people from our congregation to serve as stewardship volunteers, who will then go out and we will be speaking to face-to-face, hopefully, everyone in our congregation. So the reason we need about 30 volunteers is that way no one has to visit more than like 4 households. Because, you know, if 30 people are volunteers, that's like a quarter or something of the households already taken care of right there that we don't necessarily need to, you know, visit themselves. So if you are interested in being more involved and being in the inner circle, because, you know, if you're in a committee, if you're involved in the volunteer process, you automatically are getting more information, you feel more connected. If you are feeling like you've been on the outer edges of this process, this is a chance to be involved. Then that stewardship training will be the weekend of September 28th. So the 28th is a Sunday, and Rachel will be speaking there again. So that will be after she has completed that report that she put together after the financial feasibility study, and hopefully we'll draw some more interest in the whole process. At this point, we're really excited. We already have people that have started donating to the capital campaign. We are capable of receiving donations for that fund. And I don't want to take too much longer because I know this is primarily the unveiling, which is what everyone wants to see. Or maybe I could take 2 questions or 3 questions. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions about the finance end of it specifically. Well, I won't be here. I will be at a meeting. So if anyone, maybe one question. I don't see any hands raised. So I will step out of the way and let the building portion take over, because I'm excited too.
Thanks, Marisa. I'm Poplawsky, Chair of the Building Project Committee. And this is really exciting. We, like Mary said, we started this off 4 years ago and at a board meeting, started talking about this, and to see these plans coming and what you're going to be seeing is pretty cool. So first of all, if I could have the first slide, I'll just briefly take you through written description of the project and what the project entails. And then Ginger is going to talk about our RE needs, which was one of the really big deals here to spearhead this. And then I'll come back and we have some floor plans and stuff. I'll take you through a more detailed description of what the project is with the floor plans. So I just wanted to So I just wanted to remind everybody of what our needs are, and as Margaret said briefly, other than everything in our facility, things are great. But so improved RE classroom space, again, disability access, Yellow House non-existent, church difficult, more sanctuary seating, and more fellowship hall space. And I think as we go through those plans, you'll see that this plan really does address those things pretty nicely. So, second slide. So I apologize, you probably can't read that, but I'll tell you what's in there. We're going to have a base bid and we're going to have alternates. And this is because we have no idea how much money we're going to be able to raise. So the base bid is close to the minimum of what we can do with this addition project. And then the alternates will be additional things we could do if we can raise the money. So first of all, of course, removal of the Yellow House. We don't know whether anybody's going to want it. If somebody wanted to move it, we certainly would go that way, but it could also just be removal of the Yellow House. The addition is going to be on the west side here, three-story addition with an elevator to all 3 stories. On the ground floor, the fellowship hall floor of the addition will have new offices, minister, RE director, secretary offices. We'll have 2 bathrooms. And the main entry for the whole church complex will be in the addition area, entry foyer and cloakroom. Second level of the addition will have 4 new classrooms, so that's the same level that we're at right now. So there'll be a direct connection to the classrooms and nursery out in that direction in the hallway. And 3 new bathrooms. One of the bathrooms will have a shower for Family Promise. The third floor, we looked at doing a third floor because it turned out we could get a little more floor space and we could get more room on the site for parking if we had 3 floors instead of 2. The third floor will have a large room, library classroom, and a bathroom, and the elevator will go up to the 3rd floor. And at this point, our base bid is just roughing in the 3rd floor, not finishing it off. So the base bid also includes renovation and changing of the sanctuary floor plan here, removing the office, the secretary's office, the stairwell, the wall between the foyer and the main sanctuary, and creating space for 32 additional seats. Also in the basement, we'll be enlarging the basement by removing the offices down to the basement. And we're including a renovated commercial kitchen, which will actually be larger than the current kitchen. We're not quite sure as to where we're going to make it larger, but it will be larger. At this point, we're talking about a new furnace in the base bid for the church building. The old furnace is quite old and inefficient, but using the current duct system. The base bid will include footings for a balcony. A lot of people probably know that originally when we got the building, there was a balcony up there that was removed. But the balcony is an alternate, part of an alternate bid, not part of this base bid, but we'll make it balcony ready. So the footings will be there to support the weight of the balcony and that kind of stuff if we want to do that in the future. And parking lot, shared with the Historical Society, with the Bacano Mansion next door. We're in negotiations right now with them. They're very amenable to the idea, but we just haven't really settled on a final plan yet. The reason we need a parking lot is because we need to file for a conditional use permit because a church is a conditional use in this zone. And in order to satisfy requirements for additional, in negotiations with the city, basically what they told us is that what we really need to consider is enlarging the sanctuary. We need to have parking spaces. We need to have one parking space for every 4 new seats. So currently the plan has 8 parking spaces on site here, which will allow us 32 new seats in the sanctuary. And we also are going to make the addition solar panel ready, so that, again, the solar panels are an alternate bid if we can afford it, but they're not part of this base bid. But nevertheless, we'll make the addition such that it'll be easy to add solar panels. And Steve Flint just remembered, he did an analysis on the solar panels, and it is a will have a significant effect in that over the year they'll gather as much energy, predicted to gather as much energy as we use in electricity for the year. So that sounds pretty good. Can I have the next slide? Okay, so here's the alternate bids. I didn't mention, go back to the last slide, I'm sorry. I didn't mention the number at the bottom. So this is our estimate at this point for the base bid is $1,677,500. And you'll probably note that that's about $300 or $1,000 more than our bid from a couple years ago, from our estimate from a couple years ago. Part of that, of course, is the construction costs have gone way up. So anyways, we need to get moving on this. So next slide. So these are the alternate bids. As I said, full finishing of the 3rd floor of the addition will run close to $60,000. The green alternate bid for solar panels will run around $36,000. The balcony alternate, and the balcony will be about 40 additional seats, will run about $36,000. And I should mention, we will have to go to the city for a variance to do the balcony. The cup is pretty much a sure thing from what I understand, but the variance is not necessarily a sure thing. So we'll have to, but the 1912 Center just did a variance and they were very successful in not having to add, how many parking spots would they have had to add without the, does anybody remember? A lot. 40 or something. They were just successful with the city with their variance application. So, I mean, it certainly is a very real possibility to get that variance and add the balcony for about 40 or so additional seats. And then we have this last alternate. The siding on the church was replaced on the west side and most of the south side, I don't know, about 10 years ago, something like that. And yeah, Ken knows.
Yeah, at least
12 years ago, with hardy plank, but the tower part of the south side and the east side and the north side was not replaced. So this would be replacing all that siding with hardy plank and also replacing this large window in the foyer, which has given us a lot of problems over the past. So, could I have the next slide? Anyway, so I'm going to stop at this point here, just let you feast your eyes on this rendition of what the whole church complex will look like. And Ginger's going to tell us a little bit about how the RE needs will be met and expanded with the addition. And then I'll come back and I'll go through all the floor plans.
Okay, can I explain how the mic is supposed to be held? It's supposed to be held pointed at it. If you hold it like this, you get a lot of popping.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Ginger, and I'm the Family Ministry Director, and I'm really excited about these plans, mostly because our goal in religious exploration is to provide a welcoming and loving space for all children, families, youth, and adults. And right now, our current facilities we just can't do that as much as we provide exceptional programming and volunteer teachers. The space is just not accessible. I'm excited that we could increase the people who can volunteer in our programs. Right now, there are many people who can't come volunteer with our children on Sunday mornings because of the space issues. The stairs are not navigable for many people. I've dreaded the time that a child in a wheelchair wants to come to our program, and we have to tell them that there is no way for them to even enter the yellow house. And I've actually been surprised it hasn't happened until I realized that people may have come and even checked out our church with children with disabilities and then choose not to come, because you wouldn't bring your child into a space where they couldn't be welcomed. So this whole addition creates a space where we can actually welcome anyone who wants to come into our doors. And I grew up in the Yellow House, and I have a really I love the Yellow House for its character and its charm and my memories there. But even just now, I was late because we had to turn off the water because there's an unknown leak in the nursery. So it gets to be a point where it's hard. So some of the things that I'm excited about are the teacher and student accessibility, stairs and an elevator that would be manageable for all people, floors that are level, outlets that work, not having to go into the basement and kill mushrooms twice a year, and a space designed specifically for children. The Yellow House is really amazing, and we make it work just fine, but it could be so much better. We can actually have the spaces, of course, it's a house, are awkward because there used to be bedrooms or a dining room, and this will be a space designed with our needs in mind. And included in the plans you'll see are an RE classroom that can be created into one huge room or two smaller rooms, so we can have all children and youth together in worship. We can have an all ages place where we can really increase the programming we offer to children. The nursery is near the sanctuary, which I really like, because when you have those smallest children, it's nice to feel close and to be able to hear. And now it's all the way into the basement, and I feel like welcoming new families all that way away from here is sometimes feels awkward. So that was a really big plus. I feel like our numbers in religious exploration get to a certain point and then they almost hit a ceiling. And I think it's the same phenomenon that we see here in the sanctuary, that once we're a certain percentage full, we just can't grow. And RE numbers and numbers in the sanctuary are just so interrelated. I've been watching, and they go up and down by the same percentage throughout the year. We need to grow both places. So there's a place for the parents and adults, and there's an equal space for children. And I think we could really see a huge increase of the number of children coming if we provided that safe, welcoming, loving space. And then the last part is kind of like the future. What this opens up for us in the future is meeting needs of the community, needs that we might not even know yet. Elizabeth and I just on Friday or Thursday were talking about maybe having a safe teen space that focuses on having a safe place for LGBTQA teens to just meet at lunchtime. The Presbyterian Church has a weekly pizza for teens, and we could do something really similar to that, except make it really safe for people who may feel marginalized in school. So I feel like this opens up the possibilities to ministering to the wider community as well as ministering to those who walk into our doors. So I'm really excited about all of this. So.
Thanks, Ginger. I'll try to do this mic right. So if we go back to that other slide. I just want to point out a few things here. First of all, the main entrance to the whole complex will be right here, where it says welcome. That will open up into a large foyer, and the elevator and stairwell will be towards the back of that. But we will be maintaining, we have decided to maintain the cement steps here that are currently here, and this entryway and the disability ramp down around that side, because as you'll see, we're going to have some parking spaces over there. This will be our terrace here, and the playground area will be over here. So yeah, if we go to the next slide. Just another view of the south side of the new church complex. Next slide. Okay, so this is the site plan. Here's our existing church building, the dark here, patio. As you can see, we have planned on 2 parking spots over here. One of them might be handicapped, so it would be a really nice access for a handicap spot here. Patio, play area. The addition is here, and we have more parking spots over here, 6 on our site, and we've shown 1 over here for the McConnell Mansion, which we're working on a plan with them for the parking area. It's not clear yet. It's possible they could have as many as 3 there, but we haven't settled on that yet. Yeah, I should have mentioned, so I'm going to go through this, and then we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes for questions and answers. And then we'll wrap things up, but we'll have displays on these easels in front here with all these same floor plans and stuff, and we'll be able to answer questions informally with people when they come to look at those. So, next slide. Okay, so let's start here with the lower level. Here's the existing fellowship hall. You'll notice there's no longer any offices down here, so we're increasing the space. I don't have an exact percentage, but I think it's anywhere between 35 and 50% increase. This is the new kitchen up here, which will be expanded into where the 2 bathrooms are, and we're moving one of the bathrooms over here with entry through the storage. And we'll have 2 bathrooms over here in the addition also to take the place of the loss of the 1 bathroom. The main entry on the ground level here, vestibule and lobby, large lobby. Elevator accessible right here, and here's the stairwell, both of those going up to all 3 levels, to the other 2 levels. We have fire exits, the offices, RE Director, Minister, Secretary office. We even have a cloakroom, so yeah. Very important. What else should I point out here? Okay, next slide. So here we have the sanctuary level. Again, you'll notice we no longer have a wall between the foyers, so we've expanded the sanctuary seating space. And like I said, with the parking spots we'll have, we're allowed to expand to 32 seats, so that's what we're calling this, an expansion of 32 seats of the sanctuary space. Another thing to notice is we've raised the podium to 18 inches from comments that people in the back have a hard time seeing what's going on in the podium. And we've also raised the piano, that same amount. We'll maintain that northeast fire exit. We still have the storage here. The actual ramp for the podium will be going along the side and the back here. And coming over here, here's the passageway between the sanctuary and the RE classrooms. We have the nursery here, pretty adjacent to the sanctuary. And again, we have 3 bathrooms on this level, 1 with a shower. We have a very large RE classroom that can be divided into 2 classrooms. And then we have 2 other RE classrooms with storage, some of that for Family Promise. So we have up to 4 classrooms here on this level. As you can see, the elevator does go up to this level. So if I could have the next slide too. So this is the 3rd level. Over here, the 3rd level of the addition has a very large room that we're calling library/classroom. Restroom up here on the 3rd level. Elevator comes up here to the 3rd level. Some storage. Upper main hall that actually we've shown could be another RE space here. In addition, of course, this could be an RE space here also when needed. The stairway comes up here, and this is the same, in the sanctuary, this is all open, of course. But there will be a connection, if we have an alternate balcony, there will be a connection to the balcony here. And the balcony, I believe, is going to be around 40 or so additional seats. And again, we'll need to do a variance with the city to do that if we do go with that alternate bid. Next slide. So this is just a rendering of what the sanctuary will look like from the back of the church once we've removed the wall to the foyer and we have additional seating. You'll notice we maintain the wall hangings, and here also the pictures. We have maintained this window here. The addition actually has a little alcoves so the addition comes out from the church a ways right here, and we're able to maintain that window. Of course, we have the other two windows on the east side. This window over here is of course gone because that will be the area of the connection to the addition. So, next slide.
Actually, beyond the addition on the north side, they'll move that window onto the addition.
Right. Where's it going to be on the addition?
On the north side.
Okay. Yeah.
We're on the west side there.
Keep putting that on. They'll rotate that window in the back onto the north side of the addition.
On the stair landing.
This window here will be moved to right here. Okay. Is that right? Okay. I knew it was moved somewhere, but I couldn't remember where. Okay. This is a rendering that is not part of the base bid because it's showing the balcony. So this would be with the balcony alternate included or eventually. But again, we're showing the increased floor space and seating in the sanctuary and then the increased seating up here in the balcony. So
Is the front door that's up the stairs behind the wall there?
the front door up the stairs is behind this wall right here, yep. And that's still the same window that we have in the foyer right now. Well, I mean, unless we replace it, of course. Is there another slide, or? Okay, yeah. Oh, no, we don't want all of them. The ones I showed are superior to those. Okay, so I'm going to open up for questions and hopefully answers, and we'll take 10 or 15 minutes of that, and then we'll close up and put the murals out here in front on these, and we can have more informal discussions. Yeah.
I may have missed this, but are there plans to upgrade the ventilation system, and especially cooling?
The addition will have air source heat pumps, which will be capable of heating and cooling. Yeah, I'm getting to this.
Okay, let me turn that, move that one out.
Who had it? Are you still fine?
Okay, I'll turn it on now.
I noticed that one of the deficiencies is that this room gets very, very warm, and I'm wondering if this will have adequate ventilation and cooling incorporated into the plans, especially if you're talking about putting a balcony up there. It needs to be cooled for those warmer days.
That's a really good point, and we have not discussed that at this point, but we will certainly discuss that. At this point, for the church building, we're just talking about a new furnace, so.
Okay.
More question?
Yes, if you're taking out this window, that decreases the amount of light in this room. And according to the plans, it looks like you're planning to stick with the available lights here, which are a little bit dim by my count when I'm trying to read something especially.
I thought we were going with new lights. John, do you remember?
The theory behind this is we want to maintain the historic relevance of what these lights were and work was put into them. They can be retrofitted with LEDs to increase light, using these as... Is this the correct way? All right, we wanted to maintain the historic relevance and integrity of the existing light fixtures, as we were directed that they were important. In all aspects of this design, we wanted to pay respect to the existing old historic nature of the church. That being said, if these lights are deemed too dim, they can be retrofitted with new fixtures, new bulbs of an LED function, which will actually use less power, create less heat, and more light.
Last question, what happens to this magnificent quilt?
Margaret says, don't worry.
I think I would like to follow up that question about the lighting and from the point of view of the choir when we perform in the front. That issue has come up several times. It's a little bit dim to read music up there. So if that would be a way to correct that, it'd be great.
Does the base bid include replacing or repairing the front steps to what will be the old entrance?
Yeah, the plan is that we would repair those or replace them, yes. Okay, Mary's getting those too. I just got a question here.
So it seems like the dance between doing cost estimates, well, first I want to say, I'm just really blown away by the design. It's wonderful, and I sort of sensed around the room that it was, people like it. The question I have, I guess, relates to this dance between doing cost estimates, features, and fundraising, and I wonder if you can talk a little bit, especially in the world of this incredibly uncertain price for things more than 2 days down the road. I don't know if that's been discussed very much, but if you can talk about that sort of that interrelationship between cost estimation, features, and fundraising, if that makes sense.
That's really tough. Rod, what?
I just wanted to mention that I've run into problems with these lights have two sets of, have two different switches that turn different lights on in them, and only one of them is dimmable. And so I remember one time we had an interim minister who insisted that I dim the bigger ones through pure willpower, and I couldn't.
No, you're right. But we can replace those fixtures with LED fixtures. About the interrelationship between those three things, I think the first thing we have to do is get a really good idea of what our fundraising is going to be capable of, and determine, whether or not it's enough for our base bid, and if it's really great, decide on alternate bids for some of these other things. I don't have a crystal ball I can't make any predictions about this. Elizabeth?
So one of the things that I did on sabbatical was I talked to some colleagues who have recently come through successful capital campaigns and building projects, and they all described sort of a similar, you've got this cart and horse situation where you raise the money and then you sometimes have to make changes to the plans, but you can't raise the money without the plans, and so that's why the communication between the two committees is so important. There's no way to do, we're not going to know exactly how much money we can raise until we have business plans or we have building plans, and we can't have final building plans until we know how much money we can raise. So just be prepared for some back and forth and keep your knees soft.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if there's with the timeline, I know there's if we get the money, then we can do it sooner, or if there's some sort of in-mind timeline for this to sort of unfold.
Well, the timeline, I believe, like I say, the getting an idea about the fundraising is next. The fundraising will take, I think, is going to be a multi-year process. Does anybody else here that's part of the committee want to address that question a little more? Archie, do you, or Bill?
We're hoping and very, very hopeful that we will be able to get a bridge loan. You want the mic? Okay.
Sorry, I was way in the back.
We're hopeful that we can get a bridge loan from the UUA that will allow us to start construction, say, within a year and stuff, even though we haven't raised all the money. So like a bridge loan is only a 2 or 3 year loan until all of the pledges come in. Because if we didn't have that and we can't start construction until all of the pledges come in over a period of 3 years, that would really push back construction a long ways. But I think that the bridge loans are fairly reasonable to do. Elizabeth, did you, the UUA does allow that and stuff. Whether we could get any longer loans from a bank or something is totally unknown at this point.
Steve?
Well, maybe Al addressed this when I was over in the Yellow House looking at the leak, but the base bid does include some things like all the permitting costs. It does have a contingency percentage in there, and it is calculated for inflation for the target start date a little bit down the road. So maybe that makes it a little less intimidating.
Thanks, Steve. Archie? Oh.
Hi, I was just wondering, are all of the trees going to have to go between the sanctuary and the Yellow House, including this beautiful one I'm looking at out that window?
Which beautiful one? The plum tree?
The window that's staying, right? There's nothing, that window's not being, is that?
I think the plum tree is going to have to go, yeah.
The wood is right. This one. That's the neighbors there.
There's a sequoia tree and a Doug fir that will not go, no. They're not our, well, they're almost on our property, but not quite, yeah. Archie?
So I wonder if someone could comment on the contingency plans for what we're going to do during the construction phase for RV and church services.
Who would like to do that?
Either of us can do it.
Oh, you guys got it.
Okay. So the most obvious solution would be to use the 1912 Center. There will be some restrictions on how many worship services we can have there because of their charter. But they do have the rooms, and actually they are in the middle of a campaign right now to finish their second floor, and that will supply more than we would need in terms of classrooms. And she already knows that we're working on this project. Ginger has spoken with her. So I think, that certainly the 1912 Center, possibly the high school has been used in the past for projects like this too.
So also, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have had some discussion that the addition is going to be pretty much self-standing. So there is a thought that perhaps, we can have quite a bit of activity with the addition and still use the sanctuary. Is that right, John?
That is correct.
Okay.
Typical to any project, there's growing pains during the process, but based on this structure and the foundations of this structure, the addition would be designed in such a way that we're not intimidating the integrity of this foundation in any way. That being said, all the structural elements for the addition are set aside a distance away from this building, and essentially during that construction there will be probably, barring what is happening here behind us, there will still be access and use of this space, as long as we can maintain infrastructure elements, water, bathrooms, those kind of things during construction. So there will still be an opportunity to still use this space.
Thanks. Margaret, you had a question, or did you forget about that?
I think Albert has one here.
Oh, okay, Margaret's next.
Okay.
What are your reasons for keeping the concrete stairway in the front? Now, I'm sure they're good reasons.
Well, our architects told us that they didn't know exactly how it was connected to the foundation, and they didn't want to find out. I think, say, Joel could tell us a little bit more about the foundation, and it's probably not the best one in the world, so.
In passing, I'll walk it over to Joel, but as a designer and the aesthetic and paying close attention to the integrity of the original structure and building, I think it is imperative to leave the stairs. Not only for structure, we don't know how it affects the foundation of the church, but just the orientation. You know, historically, it's on the corner. That's where the main entrance would be. We're still utilizing a foyer from that stairwell, and it would be in our best interest and your best interest to maintain it as, even if it's just an aesthetic feature to the old church. There will be renovations made to it, though, to make it more, take care of the cracks and the uneven surfaces. Did you want to hand it out? Okay, thank you.
A couple of comments about structure. For those of you who don't know, the foundation along here consists of a number of 500-pound boulders, more or cement cemented into place. We had a lot of fun digging the hole that eventually became the door from the basement into the patio. And some of the rocks we did roll across the patio. They're still sitting there because we couldn't figure out what else to do. A couple of comments on the building. I have dreams of various kinds of function that could be accommodated if the building could be bigger. The building cannot be bigger. The building is basically maxes out the footprint available, rear setback, front setback, side setback. It can't be bigger. So your dreams of some of the other things, it could be accommodated. If it could be, well, it can't. One other comment about the yellow house. Like Ginger, I have a lot of love for the yellow house, but I also hate it. I know too much about the electrical wiring over there, and today there are puddles in two of the rooms which appear to be the consequence of a plugged sewer. So I think we probably are ready for a roto-rooter. We can't quite figure out where the water came from, but I think it's a plugged sewer. So it's a tear down.
Thanks for the update, Joel.
Yes, we've been talking about getting a new, like a screen up there in the front so we can put up the words of the hymns and we don't have to have the orders of service. And what's happening with that? Is that incorporated into the plans?
That has not been discussed by us. Is there somebody here that knows what's happening with that idea?
As far as I know, there's nothing, I mean, it was dropped and there's nothing happening, and I think it was dropped, if I remember right, waiting to see if it could be incorporated.
Oh.
Right?
If it's on hold.
Okay, so it's something we need to consider. Yep. Mary's got that down, right? Yeah.
Did I hear you say that you're looking at heat exchange systems?
Yeah, air source. Yeah, the heating and cooling for the addition will be air source heat pumps, which are supposed to be, from what I've read, about 60% more efficient than a gas furnace for heating. And those will be for the addition. And at this point, we're planning on replacing the gas furnace for the church building. But certainly we could have more discussion about that also in terms of cooling and that kind of thing, so.
Okay, I'll probably frighten people with this question, but can I have an idea how high I'll have to move the plugs for the sound system?
Oh, I'm not sure you'll have to do it, but which plugs? The ones on the wall here? This is going to be 18 inches here. Yeah.
Are you specifically talking about plugs on the back wall?
I'm talking about the,
Yeah, they will have some rails. The ones on this side may not have to still be associated with the area, the ramp, those on that side will be at the higher point.
Okay.
We've got two locations at the back of the podium now, one on the left side, one on the right. The one on the right would be fine because it's in line with the ramp. The other one will be below the ramp height. However, I don't know that we want to have plugs on the back side of the wall which would cross the ramp. So I would say we'd bring them forward and use floor plugs or bring you up a panel, a box that's above the floor.
Okay, well, that's been thoroughly discussed by the sound people, so.
So we're not quite at that level of detail yet, but yeah, those things will have to be worked out. More questions?
Well, you show green grass in front. Does that mean there's going to be an irrigation system and grass lawn this time?
That's something we can decide. It's shown that way to make it look really rosy and wonderful. And you also notice that there aren't any trees in the front there. There are some trees, but the trees aren't shown so we can see the church in the picture. Something we can.
There was going to be a dress code.
We do have an irrigation system right now. Yeah, right. They're all better dressed than we are. We do have an irrigation system right now. Actually, we're not using it. That was kind of the decision of the Building and Grounds Committee. But certainly, if the congregation wants a green lawn, we can have a green lawn. So.
Is it a new playground? I get a new one?
A new play set? It looks different than what we currently have, so it must be absolutely. Yeah.
So all of the trees out front, give me my
Oh, sorry. That was the site back there.
Talking about the grounds, the landscaping, all the trees aren't shown, but that's just because for visualization?
Correct. We're not planning on removing any of the trees up front.
Okay, great. You can do construction without chopping the front trees down?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, so why don't we break up? We're going to put the poster boards out here with all these same pictures and floor plans, and we can have some informal discussion about that for whoever's interested. Thanks very much for coming.